Jai Hind, everyone. Till now, we have completed first chapter in themes in Indian history, and in the second chapter, we have completed so far the earliest states, that is the 16 Mahajanapadas, and we also started how Magadha Empire has risen to the power. In today's video, we'll get into the details of the administration of the empire. So let's get started. Administering the empire. There were five major political centers in the empire. So there are five major political centers. Among them, one is the capital, that is Pataliputra, and the four are provincial centers. So what are the provincial centers? Takshila, which is today known as Takshashila, Ujjain, Tosali, and Suvarnagiri. So if you try to remember it as Tust. Tust means Takshila, Ujjain, Tosali, and Suvarnagiri. And these centers, they are mentioned in Ashokan inscriptions. So the names of these centers, they are inscribed in the Ashokan pillars or edicts or major or minor rock edicts. If we examine the content of these inscriptions, we find virtually the same message engraved everywhere, like from the present day northwest frontier of Pakistan to Andhra Pradesh or Orissa and Uttarakhand in India. So if we take up any inscription and try to see what is written in that inscription, whether it is located in the state of Orissa or northwest province of Pakistan, the message that is being conveyed is the same everywhere. Could this vast empire have had a uniform administrative system? That is, historians have increasingly come to realize that it is unlikely. So if we see the map from here, from this part to this part and here, it is very unlikely to administer such a vast territory. So it is very unlikely. And the region included within the empire were just too diverse. So if you compare the northwest province to the hilly regions or the Ganga plains, the culture is so different that they were together under under a single administration. Imagine the contrast between the hilly terrain of Afghanistan and the coast of Orissa. It is likely that administrative control was strongest in areas around the capital and provincial centers. So, what is mean? There was a direct administration over the capital and provincial centers. These centers were carefully chosen, both Takshashila and Ujjain, being situated on important long distance trade routes. So, in the early times, we know that the trade routes exist for the transport of materials and everything. So this Takshashila and Ujjain, they are located on that important long distance trade route. Whereas Suvarnagiri, which is in current day Karnataka, it has the gold reserves or the gold mines. So this is how the provincial centers were selected, so that they could help in the productivity, or they could help in the increasing the economy. And if you see the map here, there are three types of Ashokan inscriptions that are mentioned here. The first one is Major Rock Edict, and it is denoted by triangle. And if we try to look it in the map, we find almost nine. One in Kandahar, next Mansehra, Shahbazgarh, Kalsi, Girnar, Sopara, Sannati, Jaugarh, Shishupalgarh. So these are the 9 major rock edicts. How many are there? 9 major rock edicts. And the second one is minor rock edicts, which are denoted by square. So if you observe here, the most of the minor rock edicts are concentrated in the southern part of India, that is present day Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, while only three minor rock edicts are located in the northern part of India, and they are Bahapur, Bhairath, and Bhabru. B-Cube is located in northern part of India, and while the rest of them are located in the southern part of India. Let's go through the names once. Maski, Gavimat, Palki Gundu, Jatinga Rameshwar, Siddhapur, Brahmagiri, Nittur, Rajula Mandagiri, Udagolam. So these are the minor rock edicts. And the next one is pillar inscriptions. Pillar inscriptions, these are almost concentrated in the plains of Ganga River. So if you see Topra, Meerut, and Rumindei, Rampur, Lauria Nandagar, Lauria Araraj, Pataliputra, Sahasram, Ahraura, Sarnath, Kaushambi, Gujjara, and Sanchi. So these are the major rock edicts, minor rock edicts, and the pillar inscriptions, and the places where they are located. Next. Communication along both land and riverine routes was vital for the existence of the empire. Journeys from the center to the provinces could have taken weeks, if not months. This meant arranging for provisions as well as for protection for those who were on the move. So the people who were carrying the trade needed to be protected so that the uh, that so that the economy gets boosted. So for that, what do we need? Protection means obviously that the army was an important means for ensuring the latter. Megasthenes mentions a committee. Megasthenes, and what is the book written by him? That is Indica. Mentions a committee with 6 subcommittees. So there is a committee under which there are 6 subcommittees, and they are allotted for a coordinated military activity. So under the 6, one looked after navy, second managed transport and provisions, third responsible for foot soldiers, that is infantry, fourth for horses, cavalry, and fifth for chariots, and sixth for elephants. So there are 6. One is for navy, second one transport and provisions, third for infantry, foot soldiers, fourth for horses, fifth for chariots, and sixth for elephants. The activities of the second subcommittee were rather varied, means the transport and provisions, arranging for bullock carts to carry equipment, procuring food for soldiers and fodder for animals, recruiting servants and artisans to look after the soldiers. These are the functions carried by the second subcommittee that looks after transport and provisions. Ashoka also tried to hold his empire together by propagating Dhamma. Dhamma means the principle of which we have seen. And what are they? The same, like generosity towards Brahmanas, respect toward elders, those who renounce to worldly life, treating slaves and servants kindly. So these are the principles that were propagated through Dhamma. But the principles of which, as we have seen, were simple and virtually universally applicable. This, according to him, would ensure the well-being of people in this world and the next. Special officers known as Dhamma Mahamatta were appointed to spread the message of Dhamma. So who were appointed to spread the message of Dhamma? By special officers who are known as Dhamma Mahamatta. How important was the empire? When historians began reconstructing early Indian history in the 19th century, the emergence of the Mauryan Empire was regarded as a major landmark. India was then under colonial rule and was part of British Empire. 19th and early 20th century Indian historians found the possibility that there was an empire in early India both challenging and exciting. Also, some of the archaeological finds associated with the Mauryas, including stone sculpture, were considered to be the examples of spectacular art and typical of empires. Many of these historians found the message on Ashokan inscriptions very different from that most of other rulers, suggesting that Ashoka was more powerful and industrious and also more humble than later rulers who adopted grandiose titles. So it is not surprising that nationalist leaders in the 20th century regarded him as an inspiring figure. So if you see the history of India, there are many rulers who are considered to be great, but how are they different from? But how is the king Ashoka different from the others? So if you see the Ashokan inscription, if you see the Aihole Prashasti or any inscription regarding the kings, it is all about the magnificence of the king, like highlighting their achievements and what they have initiated in their reign, etc. But if you compare them to the Ashokan inscriptions, it is more about the philanthropic activity, like how to make people generous, or how to make people respect towards their elders. So this is how he is different from other rulers, and that is why he is regarded as an inspiring figure for nationalist leaders in the 20th century. Yet, how important was the Mauryan Empire? It lasted for about 150 years. So, what is the lifespan of the empire? Mauryan Empire? It is almost 150 years, which is not a very long time in the vast span of history of the subcontinent. Besides, you will notice that the empire did not encompass the entire subcontinent, and even within the frontiers of the empire, control was not uniform. So, under the Mauryan Empire, the control wasn't uniform. So, it's basically like the Mauryan king will directly administer the capital and the surrounding, whereas he'll administer the faraway lands through feudatories or samantas. By the 2nd century BCE, new chiefdoms, kingdoms emerged in several parts of the subcontinent. Next, new notions of kingship. The new kingdoms that emerged in the Deccan further south, including the chiefdoms of Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas in Tamilakam, the name of ancient Tamil country, which included present-day Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, in addition to Tamil Nadu, proved to be stable and prosperous. So, as the time passed by, there were the feudatories who were under a certain empire started asserting sovereignty, and they have come up with new kingdoms. And the examples are chiefdoms of Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas in the Tamilakam. A chief is a powerful man whose position may or may not be hereditary. So, hereditary is not compulsory for a man to be a chief. He derives support from his kinfolk. His functions may include performing special rituals, leadership in warfare, and arbitrating disputes. He receives gifts from his subordinates, unlike kings who usually collect taxes, and often distributes these among his supporters. Generally, there are no regular armies and officials in chiefdoms. So these are the certain characteristics of chiefs and chiefdoms. We know about these states from a variety of sources. For instance, the early Sangam texts contains poems describing chiefs and the ways in which they acquired and distributed resources. Many chiefs and kings, including the Shatavahanas, so they ruled parts of western and central India from 2nd century BCE to 2nd century AD. And also Shakas, the people of Central Asian origin who established kingdoms in the northwest and western parts of the subcontinent, derived revenues from long distance trade. Their social origins were often obscure, but as we will see in the case of Shatavahanas, once they acquired power, they attempted to claim social status in a variety of ways. So, according to the Varna system, a Kshatriya is we have the Varna system like Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. But there was so much juggling that people from different social families of different social status have set up their kingdoms, and after setting up the kingdoms, they try to claim that social status in a variety of ways. If we divine kings, one means of claiming high status was to identify with a variety of deities. So what they try to do, they try to claim themselves as a part of the deity. This strategy is best exemplified by the Kushanas. So Kushanas, they ruled from 1st century BC to 1st century CE, whereas Shatavahanas 2nd century BCE to 2nd century AD. These Kushanas, they ruled a vast kingdom from Central Asia to Northwest India. Their history has been reconstructed from inscriptions and textual traditions. The notions of kingship they wish to project are perhaps best evidenced in their coins and sculpture. So the Kushanas, they minted coins and also sculpture. Colossal statues of Kushanal rulers have been found installed in a shrine at Math near Mathura. So the Kushana rulers' statues are found where? At Math near Mathura. Similar statues have been found in a shrine in Afghanistan as also. So The statues related to Kushanas are found both in Uttar Pradesh and also in Afghanistan. Some historians feels this indicates that Kushanas considered themselves godlike. So if you see the length and breadth of breadth and height of the statues, it seems like they consider themselves godlike. And what is the title adopted by them? Devaputra, or son of God, possibly inspired by Chinese rulers who called themselves as sons of heaven. So Chinese rulers tried to call themselves as sons of heaven, whereas Kushanas, son of God, that is Devaputra. By the 4th century, there is evidence of large states, including the Gupta Empire. Many of these depended on Samanta. So, for ruling a vast territory in the Indian subcontinent, it is almost impossible. So, what they do, they'll try to administer the main centers and the capital, while they depend on Samantas or feudatories to control the faraway lands. And these Samantas, they the most basic thing they have to do is being loyal to the empire king. Many of these depended on Samantas, men who maintained themselves through local resources, including control over land. They offered homage and provided military support to rulers. Powerful Samantas could become kings. Conversely, weak rulers might find themselves being reduced to positions of a subordination. So the process is vice versa. So if the king is powerful, Samanta stays loyal to him. He provides military rule as per the demands of the king. But if the king turns weak, the Samanta, if he is powerful, he can outpower him and he become the king himself, while the king is reduced as his subordinate. Histories of the Gupta rulers have been reconstructed from literature, coins, inscriptions, including prashastis. These prashastis, they are composed in praise of kings in particular, patrons in general, and by poets. So the people like poets, patrons, they try to compose these prashastis so that they get gifts and benefits from the kings. And the one of the examples is Aihole Prashasti, which is done by Ravikriti for Samudragupta. So that's how they try to eulogize the kings. While historians often attempt to draw factual information from such compositions, those who composed and read them often treasured them as works of poetry rather than accounts that were literally true. The Prayag Prashasti. So Prayag Prashasti, which is also known as Allahabad pillar inscription, composed in Sanskrit by Harisena, the court poet of Samudragupta, arguably the most powerful ruler of Gupta rulers. Sorry, the Aihole Prashasti, I've given the wrong information. The Prayag Prashasti, which is written by the court poet Harisena, which is in Sanskrit, it is denoted to the it is denoted to the Gupta ruler Samudragupta. So this is how they try to put information that is more laudable, like they're like works of poetry rather than giving factual information. That is the basic characteristic of inscriptions. Now if you see the Kushana coin, first on the front side they have King Kanishka, and on the reverse side they have deity. So that's how they try to relate themselves to the deities. And also here, this is sandstone sculpture of Kushana king, which is found. Where are the places that have been found? One is in a mutt near Mathura, which is in current day Uttar Pradesh, and also in Afghanistan. A changing countryside. Popular perceptions of kings. What did subjects think about their rulers? Obviously, inscriptions do not provide all the answers. In fact, ordinary people rarely left accounts of their thoughts and experiences. Nevertheless, historians have tried to solve this problem by examining stories contained in anthologies such as Jatakas and Panchatantra. So, basically, in this Jatakas and Panchatantra, ordinary people try to express themselves. So, historians try to examine these for to come up on a conclusion that how people thought of their kings. Many of these stories probably originated as popular oral tales that were later committed to writing. The Jatakas were written in Pali around middle of the first millennium CE. One story known as Gandatindu Jataka. Gandatindu Jataka. So these Jataka stories, they are mostly attributed to Buddhism, and one of them is Gandatindu Jataka, which we'll see what it is about. Describes the plight of subjects of a wicked king. These included elderly women and men, cultivators, herders, village boys, even animals. When the king went in disguise to find out what his subjects thought about him, each one of them cursed him for their miseries, complaining that they were attacked by robbers at night and by tax collectors during the day. To escape from this situation, people abandoned their village and went to live in the forest. As this story indicates, the relationship between king and his subjects, especially the rural population, could often be strained. Kings tried Kings frequently tried to fill their coffers by demanding high taxes. Peasants particularly found such demands oppressive. Escaping into the forest remained an option, as reflected in this Jataka story, that is, Gandatindu Jataka. Meanwhile, other strategies aimed at increasing production to meet growing demands for taxes and also came to be adopted. So, this is the story about the Gandatindu Jataka. And if you see the box here, the Sudarshana Lake is an artificial. The Sudarshana Lake was an artificial reservoir. We know about it from a rock inscription, which is composed in 2nd century BCE in Sanskrit. Achievements of Shaka ruler Rudradaman. So the Shaka ruler Rudradaman has maybe could have done the building of Sudarshana Lake. The inscription mentions that the lake with embankments and water channels was built by local governor during the rule of Mauryas. However, a terrible storm broke the embankments and water gushed out of the lake. Rudradaman, who was then ruling in the area, claimed to have got the lake repaired using his own resources without imposing any tax on his subjects. Another inscription on the same rock mentions how one of the rulers of the Gupta dynasty got the lake repaired once again. So this Sudarshana Lake, it was mainly built by rulers under Mauryan Empire, but later when it was damaged, it was Shaka ruler Rudradaman who got it repaired. It is the Sudarshan beautiful lake which is in Gujarat. Strategies for increasing production. So whenever the king tries to impose more taxes, there were two options for the ordinary people, either to escape to forest or to increase the production. So what were the strategies for increasing production? One such strategy was the shift to plough agriculture, which spread in fertile alluvial river valleys such as those of Ganga and Kaveri from 6th century BCE. The iron-tipped plowshare was used to turn the alluvial soil in areas which had high rainfall. Moreover, in some parts of the Ganga Valley, production of paddy was dramatically increased by introduction of transplantation, although this meant back-breaking work for the producer. What is this transplantation? It's like transplantation is used for paddy cultivation in areas where water is plentiful. First, the seeds will be scattered. They will be scattered or they will be broadcast. But when there is a germination, when we can see the saplings, they'll try to put it in patterns. So when the saplings have grown, they are transplanted in waterlogged fields. This ensures a higher ratio of survival of saplings and higher yields. So although it yields high rather than the traditional way of farming, but it is so much pressure work for the producer. While the iron plowshare led to a growth in agricultural productivity, its use was restricted to certain parts of the subcontinent. Cultivators in areas which were semi-arid, such as parts of Punjab and Rajasthan, did not adopt it till 20th century. So till 20th century, the people of parts of Punjab and Rajasthan didn't adopt to the plowshare, iron plowshare. And those living in hilly tracts of northeastern and central parts of the subcontinent practiced hoe agriculture, which was much better suitable to the terrain. So although we know that the iron plowshare increases the yield, but it has to be suitable for the prevailing conditions where the production is going on. So in the hilly areas, hoe agriculture was better than the iron plowshare. Another strategy adopted to increase agriculture production was the use of irrigation through wells and tanks, less commonly canals. Communities as well as individuals organize the construction of irrigation works. The later, usually powerful men, including kings, often recorded such activities in inscriptions. So, building irrigation active like building things that are useful for irrigation, these are also included in the inscriptions of the kings. The Manusmriti is one of the best known legal texts. Manusmriti, it is a legal text written in Sanskrit between 2nd century BCE and 2nd century CE. This is what the next text advises the king to do. Seeing that in the world controversies constantly arise due to ignorance of boundaries, he should have concealed boundary markers buried, stones, boughs, bones, cow's aid, chaff, ashes, pebbles, etc. He should also have other similar substances that would not decay in the soil buried as hidden markers at the intersection of boundaries. So even today also we clash in the border disputes and everything. So the Manusmriti says these things have to be buried so that in future also it doesn't lead to the disputes for the boundaries. Next, differences in rural society. While these technologies often led to an increase in production, the benefits were very uneven. What is evident is that there was a growing differentiation among people engaged in agriculture. Stories, especially within Buddhist tradition, refer to landless agricultural laborers, small peasants, as well as large landholders. The term Gahapati was often used in Pali texts sorry, to designate the second and third categories, that is, small peasants, the large landholders, as well as the village headmen emerged. Village headmen, the position is often hereditary. They emerged as powerful figures and often exercised control over cultivators. Early Tamil literature, that is the Sangam text, also mentions different categories of people living in the villages. So under Sangam text, the large landowners are called Velalar. The plowmen are called Ulavar. And slaves are called Adimai. So these are the categories under Sangam text. First one, Velalar, that is large landowners. Second one, Ulavar, plowmen. And the third one, Adimai, who are slaves. It is likely that these differences were based on differential access to land, labor, and some of the new technologies. So what could be the reason for this differentiation? Maybe the differential access to land, labor, and some of the new technologies. In such a situation, questions of control over land must have become crucial, as these were often discussed in legal texts. Gahapati. Gahapati means owner, master, or head of the household who exercise control over the women, children, slaves, workers who share a common residence. He is also the owner of resources, that is land, animals, and other things that belong to the household. Sometimes the term was used as a marker of status of men belonging to urban elite, including wealthy merchants. So, what does Gahapati mean? It's basically indicates the owner of the household who has control over women, children, and the workers who are working in his residence. So this is about Gahapati. So with this, we are going to conclude this video, and in the next class, we'll continue and try to cover some more topics under the chapter. Until then, thank you and Jai Hind.